Hey, everybody, welcome to episode 19 of the Giant Zone, where you've got your co host, Steve the Banker,
Going on?
and then you've got yours truly, Fly Guy Carl, wearing my Rangers gear, celebrating the first one of the series. Very, very excited about that. So it's going to be a better show tonight because the Rangers won earlier today. So it'll be, you'll see a lot more smiling out of me.
There he is. He's in a good mood.
He's in a very good mood. So, excuse me, before we get going, just again, always want to ask, please, if you like to view the show on YouTube, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Or if you like to listen to it and download it, please give us a 5-star review. Those reviews and subscriptions just help us to continue to provide shows for you. So we really appreciate all the support and all the help that you will give us. So this week, we're joined by a very good friend and follower of ours, Sean. Sean, say hi to everybody.
Hey guys.
Sean always chimes in. He's involved in a lot of Giants tweets, a lot of Giants conversations, and we both felt very strong that he'd be a good guest and very interesting guest, and we really think it's going to be a great show. So, given that, Sean, why don't you give us a little background about yourself, how you became a Giants fan, and go from there.
Yeah, so I was born into it. My father was a huge Giants fan. He goes back to, Sam Huff. That was his favorite player. So growing up, it was Giants all day for me. I really became an even bigger fan with Lawrence Taylor. You can see Taylor in the background here. That cemented my love for the Giants. So yeah, you're born into it. I bleed blue, without a doubt. There was no alternative. There was no choice for me. I was Giants all day. So the history of the Giants, learned that from my father. Like I said, Sam Huff, Rosie Greer, those guys back in the day, always hearing about it and just always watched them on TV. So yep, I was born into it.
Excellent. Well, and I think most of us were. I know there's people out there that just kind of stumbled onto them, but I know my family, Steve, I don't know about yours, I had my father, my older brother, even my mother, for crying out loud. I was a little kid growing up and hearing all these people yelling at the TV every Sunday. Finally, I kind of wised up and said, what are you all yelling at? Well, it's Giants. And it started from there. So I guess I can kind of relate to that. And what about, give us some stories here. Do you have any kind of superstitions or traditions or any special memories?
Yeah, so we're a big sports family. My father played, he was a coach. I played, I was a coach. So we were always very superstitious. So I'll share a couple quick. So the 86 season, we're in the playoffs and we had some family and friends over. In the house we were down in the basement because mom was upstairs. She wasn't as big of a Giants fan yet. So all the men were downstairs watching the game. Giants won. And then the next week, everybody had to come back, all had to wear the same stuff. Nothing could change. We did that. And obviously that went on throughout. So when the Super Bowl comes around, same thing. Everybody's in the same location, same seats, same outfits, all of that. They win it. So obviously, there's that couple-year gap. 90 comes around, make the playoffs. The same people are over again, the same locations, the same outfits. And then we just do it throughout, and they go and win it again in 90. So it was pretty cool. Like everybody kind of laughed because they're like, "Oh, we got to sit in the same seats, we got to wear the same outfits." My father's like, "Yeah, this is what happened last time they won. You got to do it. You got to do it." 2000 came around, and I didn't do anything with family or anything like that. I went to a buddy's house, and we know what happened in 2000. Yep. So 2011 comes around. I'm still in New York at the time. So we have it over at my apartment that I'm in, have a big party, family over, cook meatballs, all that stuff. And we know what happened in 2007, beating the Patriots. So, being around family with the Giants seems to be good luck.
Yeah. Now, so you haven't gone to any Super Bowls?
Live? No.
Oh. I was lucky enough to go to the last one against the Patriots, and
I didn't know that.
Oh, wow.
Sorry?
Yeah.
I actually didn't know that about you.
Oh yeah, I did. I went to the, I went with 5 Patriots fans to boot, and it was funny because we were kind of keeping it on the level, and then when Eli was running onto the field for that last drive, I don't know what got into me. I just stood up and I looked down the row and I said, we're going to win. And I took some heat for it and we won. And it was great because we had a limo to take us back to our hotel. And it was the quietest limo ride I've ever been in. But boy, I was chirping away. It was beautiful. So, everybody becomes one big family at that point, hugging people you never even met in your life and you'll never meet again. It was a great time. A lot of fun. So anyway, let's kind of get into some of your questions here, Sean. I know you've got some questions for us. So why don't you go ahead and fire away?
Yeah, so I'm kind of curious what you guys were thinking about, the first round, because obviously there's a lot of things that went out. People were saying, hey, you got to do 2 old linemen in the first round. I was kind of on that board, Neil, Linderbaum. I was like, that's the way we got to go. So I'm kind of wondering what you guys thought of, how excited you were that it played out with, Neil and Tibbs, or Tibbs and Neil in that order. And then did you guys see it playing out that way in that first round? Did you guys really think we had a shot at getting both those guys?
Steve, why don't you run with this?
Man, I was freaking out. I was nervous. There was the talk of Trayvon Walker going number 1. Every year there's smoke screens. I thought, man, there's no way he's going number 1. And then we all know what happened. He went number 1, which obviously helped the Giants. I think it's just been the scars of even forget the last 5 years, 10 years, just going back to Jerry Reese era as general manager. Yes, 2007 was amazing. All those rookies helped us win a Super Bowl, but as time went by, I think little by little, as years went by, every year, probably the really beginning for me of when things started falling apart, Eric Flowers in round 1, I wanted an offensive lineman. Oh my God, we need an offensive lineman. And that was the pick. Just all these years, I think there's just been a lot of emotional scarring for us as Giants fans about the draft and whoever the GM is and what they're going to do. So I think there was this new hope, right, with who's running the team now, Shane and Dable. I was concerned though. It's hard to shake that off until you finally see it. I thought for sure there might be some teams taking a tackle. There's a big difference. So a couple things I've talked about, and then I'll hand it off to Carl. Big difference between round 1 and round 2 offensive tackles. I did some study and I came up with some statistics leading into the draft in one of our recent podcasts. Anybody wants to go back and listen about how few starting tackles in the NFL were not picked in round 1. More than 50% of starting offensive tackles left and right, if you look at the 64 positions in the league, were round 1 picks, even if they're not still with their same team. There's a reason for that. So there's a premium on offensive tackles. We saw Kansas City a couple of seasons ago in the Super Bowl. What happens when your 2 offensive tackles get hurt, right? No protection. Mahomes running the whole game. Kansas City loses the Super Bowl. Detroit, of the top teams ahead of us, I thought only Detroit was really set on offensive tackle. The Jags and the Jets, you can make an argument, I thought, leading into the draft that either of them might take a tackle. Houston could have added a tackle, and I don't think it would. Yes, they re-signed Laramie Tunsil, but the argument could be. So my concern was there were a lot of teams that either could trade up into the ahead of us, or teams that were already in the top 5 ahead of us, other than Detroit, that the argument could be made that they could. So, and then lastly, I didn't think there were any great top 5 impact players. Like every year going into the draft, there's 1 or 2 great quarterbacks. There's that one defensive end, whether it was more recently the Bosa brothers or Chase. There's always like that 1 or 2. And Aiden Hutchinson, he didn't go 1 for a reason. He's not like quite in that class. He's the sure thing, but he's not like at that level most people were saying. So I was nervous. I was nervous about who we'd be taking. We only had 2 goals as far as I was concerned with our top picks in the top 7. 1, get our right tackle, and 2, get a premium defensive player, probably edge, or Carl and I talked about Sauce. We both had like a little bit of a man crush on Sauce. You could justify that, especially in Wink's defense. So the way it played out literally couldn't have gone better. I was shocked, but in a good way. So happy, man. So happy.
Yeah, and I agree with Steve. I'm not going to go into as much detail or depth as Steve did, but to answer the question directly, I wasn't sure. I was certain we were going to pick a tackle, but in my heart of hearts, I felt it was going to be Cross, only because I thought the two big ones were going to be off the board, Icky and Neil.
Mhm.
And so as the first round was progressing, and Steve and I were texting each other and talking to each other, and when Stingley went to Houston at 3, I said, all right, the talk was we got a tackle. We got one of the tackles. And then I kept saying to myself, well, it looks like we're going to get Sauce and Cross. All right. And then when they announced Sauce at 4 to the Jets, I texted Steve right away. I said, well, maybe we take Thibodeau here. And then we pivot back to the tackle at 7. One of them is going to be there.
Mhm.
I texted it to him, but I kind of half believed it. And then when the pick was made, I said, okay, well, there's one. We got the edge, and that's great. We finally got that defensive player that gives our defense a little swagger now. Okay. I didn't expect Neil to be there. So when Carolina took Icky at 6, I was praying that someone wasn't going to trade up and that they weren't going to announce a trade. And then when Neil was the pick at 7, I mean, my respect for Joe Shane just went through the roof because he played that first round just perfectly. It was nice to have a GM that let the draft come to him. He didn't force it. He didn't reach. And as Giant fans, how good does it feel to come out of a first round saying, boy, we nailed it?
Mhm.
When was the last time that we said that? There's been many first rounders recently where we said, who is this guy? And then there's other ones where we said, well, really? I mean, if you're not on board with these first round picks, then you haven't been following this offseason. So I thought he played it very, very well, and I was very, very pleased with it. What else do you have, Sean?
Well, I was going to follow up with that just real quick. A
ahead.
quick point. I was really excited about Neil for the reason that I knew he played right tackle before. And you come from a winning program. And if you remember back when Coughlin, he went after captains because they brought a certain thing. So bringing in players that know how to win, what it takes to win, that's what this organization has been lacking. So that's why I lean Neil towards anybody else for those reasons. His talent was really good too, but he's coming from a winning tradition. Like all he knows how to do is win. And that means something to me. So, and Tibbs he brings that raw energy, which, I didn't believe any of the smoke screens before that, he wasn't committed or anything like that. So that's the one thing I was going to add there.
So, Sean, quick question for you. At what point so when the Giants picked at 5,
Yep.
did you want them to take Neil then, or were you happy the way he played it?
No, once I saw how it was played out, I was fine with Tibbs because I had a feeling that with everything I read ahead of time, I had a feeling that Carolina was going to take Icky, and I was fine with that. So I wanted Tibbs. There was no doubt in my mind. Tibbs, I don't think he would have lasted. If we didn't take him, I think Carolina would have taken him. So, yep, I thought Shane did it the right way there.
And Steve, didn't we discuss that? Didn't it come up somewhere, maybe on one of our previous shows, that the Giants actually preferred Icky at some point? Didn't we hear that somewhere?
Yeah, but I don't, and that may be true. I think Daboll, it was Shane that announced in one of his post-draft pressers, it could have been Daboll. Now I forget. There's been so many where they said there was a 1 and a 1A.
Yeah.
But they're not going to tell us who they are.
Right.
I was listening earlier today to the interview from a couple days ago during the OTAs this past week with Glowinski and Giants.com. I think it was Paul Dottino interviewed those guys, him and Max Garcia and Daboll. And Glowinski said at one point, I forget the context of the question, but he was asking it. Basically, the context was he was asking about what can you do to help Evan Neal? Let's assume you're the starting right guard. You've played both guards in Indianapolis.
Right.
Let's assume Evan Neal is our starting right tackle. Tell the fans what you can do as a 7-8 year veteran helping a rookie, blah, 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 blah. Okay. And he talked about him, and then he sort of followed up with, "What have you seen from him in the OTA so far?" He's like, "I know you guys aren't in pad yet, but and he made a comment, and he's like, he talked about his athleticism. He's like, I'm paraphrasing. He's like, you could see it, you could see his athleticism, his strength. He's like, but he made this quick comment. He goes, when he puts his hands on another human being, and I got excited. He's like, when he locks on, this is Glowinski, who's a road grader, all around off guard. That's why he was a priority for us in free agency. He immediately is like the best right guard we've had in a decade. He's not like he's a guy that's played with some good tackles in Indianapolis. And it was this crazy thing today, listening and talk about Evan Neal, like in awe of his physicalness and his ability. I was like, man, this guy might be a Pro Bowl right tackle for us. I don't know if he would ever be a Pro Bowl left tackle, and thank God we have a good left tackle, a great young left tackle. But I'm already getting, like, not to put the cart ahead of the horse, but I'm like, man, this kid, he really may be what we've been waiting for what seems like, more than a decade. Since Kareem, somebody said it. The other thing I'll say is they said his floor is Kareem McKenzie. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
If that's his floor.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah. I'll take that any day of the week.
Think about that, guys. Think about what those two guys on the right side are going to do for Saquon and our backup running backs, and Daniel Jones, if he decides to say, let's RPO and run. We're getting ahead of ourselves, but
right. But again, and Steve, how many times have we said this? It's nice to have hope.
And the only thing with Icky is, I think we all had a man crush on him too. I like to use that expression because, whatever. So much potential. His best run blocking offensive lineman we've probably seen in years. Forget this year. We've probably seen in years in the draft.
Yeah.
But he had a lot of stuff he has to work on in the pass pro. This kid Neal, not so much. You can plug and play him and not worry about pass protection. So, yeah.
And he was the more pro ready of the two, which, again, I don't think this could have played out any better for us. So I'm very, very pleased. Sean, what else do you have for us, buddy?
Yeah, I'm going to make a quick pivot because based on kind of what Steve kind of talked about there with the Jones and plug and play and all that, I'll skip one of my questions, go to the other one. Let's kind of talk. What do you guys think as far as who's going to make the impact this year and dictate the team's success? Do you think it's going to be the defense? Do you think it's the offense? Who's going to be responsible for the success of this team this year? I know there's the questions about the offense. They need to step it up, but in reality, who you guys think is going to be the reason why the Giants are successful this year?
To answer that, I guess my first question is define successful.
Winning more games, being competitive in more games, looking like an NFL team again. Those things, but winning more games, that's to me a success. We want to win, right? Let's
put it this way. I'm gonna take the approach of being more competitive, because winning more games can be, we can go 5-12 and we won one more game. Mm-hmm. And we've discussed on numerous shows, we think the sweet spot is between 6 and 8 wins anyway.
Yep.
But I agree with you. I like the word competitive, because let's say they go 5-12, 6-11, 7-10, but they're losing games by 3, 6 points, and they're in these games. They're not getting their doors blown off. To me, that's a good first season in a rebuild. Mm-hmm. Who do I think is going to make the biggest impact? Now, do you say player or the unit?
Unit. You think that the offense or the defense is going to dictate that this year?
I think they both need to show improvement. I want to say the offense based on the new offensive line and the new offensive scheme that Daboll brings. So I think that our offense has just been so bad lately that I think if we see an offense that can move the ball consistently, can score some touchdowns, they can pull off some big plays, keep the defense off balance. I think that's where this is just me, but I think that's where you're going to see the biggest impact, and that's who I think is going to control the season. Let's say I could be wrong. I mean, our defense may be lights out, but I think our offense has just been so much more further behind the defense that I think we're going to see it on the offense.
Okay.
Steve?
Yeah, for me, it's easy. It's the offense. And I think all roads lead back to the offense, even when you're talking about the defense. And I'm not trying to give a riddle. I'll explain what I mean by that. Offense wins games, defense wins championships. The defense is huge, right? You can get to the Super Bowl, but you're not going to win unless you have a great defense as well. I think that our defense, let me just say this about the defense this year and why I was so excited about Wink as that hire. Our defense is going to give up some big plays. We know what the issues are at corner. And guess what? If they don't, and I hope I'm wrong about that, well, that'll be crazy. That'll be amazing. Maybe Aaron Robinson moves to the outside and exceeds our expectations. We didn't think he was an outside corner. I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen with the guys they brought in, but in all likelihood, the odds are, I think most people are resigned to the fact this is a new year, new defense, super aggressive, but not super simple. I mean, there's a lot of exotic blitzes. The defense is going to give up some big plays, but it's going to create turnovers that we're not used to seeing.
Mhm.
Awesome. Exciting. No more of the bend, but don't break.
Yeah.
But to me, it comes down to the offense. And the reason is very simple. If the offensive line gels, the sooner it gels, the sooner we'll see results. If the offensive line, and I always argue with some of my friends about this and some younger fans that I know, I always say it's the offensive line, and it's not the sexy thing, right? Like, oh, offensive line, it's the quarterback that matters. No, the offensive line controls the clock if we want it to. They can run out the clock, keep the ball away from some of these high octane offenses that we're going to see. It's going to allow us to score in the red zone, to have more patience, so the pressure's not on Daniel as quickly as it's been in the past, along with the fact that we're going to hopefully get much, much, much better play calling from our offensive coaches. They're going to increase the explosive plays. We know that, but you can't capitalize on the turnovers of the defense that we hopefully are going to get unless you have the offensive line and the protection. And then the last thing is, even when you talk about the defense, you can't just blitz for 4 quarters. You can't. I played defense. You guys played defense when you were younger. You played football, organized football. You get exhausted. And I think we saw that the last 2 seasons. We actually had pretty good defenses, but they got ground down. They were on the field way too long. When you have the offensive line controlling the game, controlling the clock, it allows you to keep that defense fresh, keep them off the field. So when they do come in, they're wild dogs ready to blitz, because that's what Wink wants to do. So no matter how you look at it, it's like, even when you're talking about the defense, it is the offense, because it's the offense that's going to keep the defense off the field, keep them fresh, allow Wink to do what he wants to do. So I think if we increase statistically where we were offensively from being 31st, 32nd in the league last year to just middle of the pack, our defense was already middle of the pack. Can you imagine how much better the season is going to go than we otherwise might expect?
Yeah.
What do you think, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, I think the offense, it's got to. I mean, we're as longtime Giants fans, it's always been about defense for us. Like, you go way back. So I think that I want a stout defense. I want a more aggressive defense than what was there before. I think Wink brings that. I think the addition of Tibbs and some of the other guys bring that as well. But the offense has got to step up. You got to make plays. You got to do things. And you got to, like you said, Steve, you got to get that defense a rest so they can be nasty. And I think they will. But yeah, it is, to me, it's going to come down to the offense. They got to step it up. They got to do something. Saquon's got to be Saquon again. You got a line now. You got to utilize him. You got weapons. And I think Dable can scheme them up. Kafka can scheme them up. I think that's where we were lacking before. I mean, there's no secret about that. We didn't know how to scheme our weapons up. We have weapons. I think he'll scheme them up.
Yeah.
I'll tell you though, we all talk about the offense, but how nice is it to enter the season feeling that we've got a defense with a little bit of swagger that's going to hit people and not make it easy for teams to just move up and down the field on us anymore. What a complete 360 in attitude and just hope and feelings for the upcoming season than what we've been entering the seasons for the past, 10 years?
Yeah.
So it's exciting. This is an exciting time to be a Giants fan. What else do you have for us, Sean?
I got one. I'm going to go back to the draft, and this can be real quick because I know there's some other things that we want to get to. Because listen, I'm enjoying talking Giants with you guys here. So one of the things that second round, I had some hopes up about. We know the Giants have neglected linebacker for however many years. So I'm curious who you guys were thinking in the second round you really wanted to go, because I think a lot of us were looking and saying, man, Dean's there. Kobe Dean's there. Like, let's take him. And so, come to find out what happened afterwards, it makes sense now. But what were you guys kind of thinking? Who did you really want in that second round at that point?
Good, Steve.
It's simple. The guy that I wanted, and I said it on a podcast before the draft, so it's not blowing smoke. It's out there. People can go back to our old podcast and watch or listen. I wanted Quay Walker. A lot of people are like, what are you talking about? He's not the best linebacker at Georgia. I was like, yes, he is. He's going to be the best linebacker in the pros. And guess what? He went number 22 to Green Bay. I was so bummed about that. He's going to be, in my opinion, he's going to be phenomenal in the NFL, and Green Bay knows it. So I know that's not exactly the question you had. I think your question was of the people that were actually there for us, and I'll answer that. But going into the draft, that's the guy that I thought, him or Zion Johnson. I know Carl targeted Zion Johnson. There were certain guys that we thought might fall out of the first, because that happens every year, right?
Yep.
We usually benefit from that if we're picking at the top of the second. So, okay, so he wasn't there. It is what it is. Carl and I were texting back and forth during the draft about this. We're on Twitter. The guy that I wanted was Andrew Booth. I know I'm not the only one.
Yep.
I predicted that we might trade down, and I was okay with that. And sure enough, we did. What I didn't realize was that we would trade twice. That shocked me. In retrospect, hopefully those picks work out. It was brilliant because we got all these 4th and 5th round picks that we needed. It's a numbers game. We needed more bodies, more at bats, right? But the kid out of Clemson, he went to the Vikings. The Vikings were in desperate need of a corner, which is why I thought they might be the team that might offer to trade up from 12 to 7 if we were going to trade that 7 pick. And thank goodness we didn't. And we just talked about how that all worked out for us. He's 6 foot, 194, great size. He was a 5-star recruit going into Clemson. He's scheme friendly. He could play man, press, or zone, which we needed. We need someone who can play man press. There aren't a lot of corners that can do that. Twitchy athlete. He's got burst. He's got length. He can close quickly. I was like, man, all these things are things that we would want. You would think we would want out of a corner. Smooth back pedal. He's got ball hawking instincts. Doesn't matter. All those things don't matter because we didn't pick him. And, to me, there were a lot of concerns with Nakobe Dean, as we all now know. And gosh, I wanted Andrew Booth. I was like, we need a corner. And they ended up going in a different direction with Cordell Flott a little bit later on in the draft. So.
And I'm gonna pick up on that because I wanted excuse me, I wanted Dean. I fully went to bed Thursday night saying we're gonna get Nakobe Dean. And my thinking was they're gonna get the linebacker. I felt they were going to go secondary somewhere, whether it was, I was leaning more cornerback than I was safety. All right. I wasn't overly concerned about the safety position. And then as, picks started to come off the board, Robinson was not on my radar. I admit it. And I voiced my displeasure about that, especially on Twitter. And
yeah, you were upset, I remember.
Yeah.
Oh, I was quite upset. And then they took the guard from North Carolina, which,
yep.
Okay, I was happy they added depth. Was not one of the names that I was looking at. Okay, it wasn't even not on my radar. And then Flott, okay, so they addressed one of the needs that I thought they would. And I was not overly pleased with it at the end of round 2, at the end of Friday night, rounds 2 and 3. But in thinking about it, a little bit on Saturday, and then Sunday. Robinson's going to play. He's going to contribute.
Oh yeah.
All right. Azuma is Azuma. Is that the name of the guard, Steve?
Azude, Josh Azude.
Okay. Probably going to be in the mix to start, I would think. If
by
not, I
midseason.
think. What's that, Steve?
Or maybe even by midseason.
Yeah. So he's going to be in the rotation, if nothing else, right? And Flott's going to play, obviously. So when you think about that, if we came away from rounds 2 and 3 with 3 guys that are going to contribute this year, that's a good second day of the draft. So in as much as I was disappointed with the names, okay, because they weren't names that I was looking at or I was familiar with, I think the need and the picks actually made a lot of sense. So again, I'm more pleased about it now than I was at the end of round 3. But it took me a little while to come around. But yeah, I'm very happy with it. And again, we're going to get players. So all right, hats off. He did well. What do you think, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted Dean solely because he's a football guy. You could tell he knew the game. And again, that's what Giants have been lacking. And so, I mean, he just made sense. The guy was football intelligent. He was around every play. And that's all that mattered to me. I know he's a little undersized or whatever, but he was playing in the SEC. It's not like he was playing against, bad competition. And he was always around the ball, like all season long. So, but hearing his medical concerns, I get it. Giants couldn't take that risk. Philly could. It's going to drive me nuts. Philly, worst thing, at least he didn't go to the Cowboys, because that would have drove me even more crazy if he was on the Cowboys. Yeah. Philly's second. But then when they picked up McFadden and Beavers, I thought that was 2 good linebackers that they added that were outside the radar. I'm surprised Beavers fell as far as he did, to be honest. Watching his tape, seeing some things, those are 2 guys, again, they got football instinct. You can see they're always around the ball. They're making plays. That you can coach those guys up. You can improve where they already are, but you can't teach football intelligent. You guys, feel free to add in here. Like watching the Giants the last several years, there were guys that were out of position because they just weren't, football IQ. Like, you think of Madden, like what the football IQ is on there. They were lacking it. I think they have guys now that have that football intelligence, and that makes a difference. If you know the game, if you understand things, you just have a feel, you're football intelligent, you're not just athletic, that goes a long way. So I thought I was disappointed, but when they added those 2 linebackers, I felt a little bit better.
Right. And you know what? Beavers is such great value for where they got him.
Yeah.
Wow. Has it come out why he fell as far as he did?
I didn't hear anything. Steve, did you hear anything?
No.
Was he slated to drop that far down and be a 6th-round pick? I didn't think so, but
there's actually been some UDFAs that 1 or 2 that we got, like one of the running back out of Florida State, who's apparently blown it up at OTAs. There was some really cool podcasts I was listening to recently, because we all listen to each other, a lot of the good ones. And they were talking about some of the staff in the Giants was saying, listen, it might have been Dable, like there's no explanation. Some years there's guys that are picked in the 5th or 6th round. Like, really? This guy got picked? That team targeted him? And then there's guys that are UDFAs that are like, how did this guy not get drafted? So look, all you need to do is look at the 1st round and look at who the Cowboys selected, Tyler Smith, and then just a couple picks later, New England picked Cole Strange.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if those picks are going to work out or not going to work out, but it just goes to show you, I think beauty's in the eye. And remember, the other thought I was going to say, guys, is this, and this isn't an I told you so. It's just, again, it's on tape. I've been saying it for weeks and weeks. I just got the feeling, Carl's heard me say this a few times now, and I believe I was right. And you don't have to be a super detective to figure this out. Just listen or watch the interviews with Dable and Shane leading up to the draft. Since they were hired, they talked about smart, tough to bendable. They talked about their types of guys. And the guys are not just culture, but also who could fit and who's going to work their tail off. Because sometimes it's not just what you did in college. It's how hard are they going to work when they're here to improve. Even Thibodeau's not a finished product. How hard is he going to work?
Mm-hmm.
I said, Carl remembers me multiple occasions. I'm telling you, I don't know if it's 80, I don't know if it's 90, I don't know if it's 100, but out of the 300 and some odd draft eligible players, I'm telling you, these guys have a list of players and that's it. It doesn't matter that we love Dean. It doesn't matter what, the common fan thinks, oh, but this guy's amazing. Well, that's why we do what we do for a living somewhere else in some other career. And that's why these guys do what they do. They've identified the players they want. And then it's just a question of value, right? Like, are they available? Is it worth it at that pick or not? To me, the most impressive thing, and this is my final thought on this with the draft, and I said this in one of our most recent podcasts was, and remember, Carl, I went through that exercise and I said, can you imagine if you had a shopping list of players? And if I told you, and then I went down the list, we get a starting right tackle and we get a defensive end, blah, 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 or linebacker. And I stopped at like 5.
Yeah.
And I said, we'd be pretty happy. We'd say, all right, that's a good draft. And then I just kept going and I kept going. And I said, oh, what about a backup defensive tackle to groom behind Ellis, who they signed from the Ravens? And what about this? And what about a linebacker for this? And I kept going down. And by the end of it, I think we all agreed. It was like, yeah, okay, that would be stupid to expect that. Well, that's what he did. Doesn't mean they're all going to work out, but he literally addressed every single need in this draft. 11 picks, like, right? 11. I'm not even thinking off the top of my head.
11.
Yeah. I mean, that's stupid. It's crazy. And then they went and got some undrafted free agents who were excited about a potential tight end that might make the roster. This running back out of Florida State that killed Notre Dame. You never know, he might make it. I mean, these guys, that's one of the things, if we think about, that's what we were excited about when they were hired. It's not just their schemes and their coaching. It's they know how to identify talent. They have a proven track record. So,
quickly, did you guys hear about the comments John Feliciano made made last week about, he was on a podcast. Did you hear that? He had issues and the
Buffalo.
way he said it with, some of the higher ups in Buffalo where he was yelling at them. And there was a question posed on Twitter. Do you have concerns about that? I'll just throw it out there to both of you. What do you guys think? Go ahead, Sean.
I don't, because here's the thing, like we've lacked some nasty, we lacked some dogs. And I watched the interview, what he said when everybody's getting like, oh, I don't like him now. He really didn't say anything that was over the top, in my opinion. He agreed. You could tell he wanted to say something more, but he said it in a way that I thought made sense. And listen, I'm fine with that. Like, you think back to some of the great teams, there was nasty. Not everybody had to be this choir boy. Like, I'm fine with that. If he can go out and he can maul people and it's going to lead to victories, I don't care what he says. Like, I just don't want to lose anymore. So I want some nasty, especially from an old lineman. Like, you want nasty, you want guys that are that. So I didn't have a big issue with it at all, So Steve, I don't know what you thought, but.
No, I totally agree. And that same interview I just referred to about 5 minutes earlier with Glowinski, he mentioned that as well. They said, you were on a playoff team in Indianapolis. What are the ingredients in your opinion? He's like, listen, the offensive line, we need to be tight. We need to, and then Max Garcia also was in that interview on Giants.com. He's like, yeah, I've been on a Super Bowl team in Denver and then some other teams, and we all know he came from Arizona, where our offensive line wasn't so tight. So they talk about how they need to really become close with each other. That translates to on the field, and we all know what that means. But they said the other thing is you got to have that dog in you. You got to have that ability to impose your will on the defensive lineman or whoever it is that's on the other side of the line. And when you hear him in that interview talk in those terms, it makes you realize, like, this is what we've needed.
And Sean, I like the way you phrased that about Feliciano, and so I have two thoughts on that. Number one is I also liked what he said, where he owned it, where he actually said, look, I probably could have handled some of those things differently. I could have been different. I could have said things differently. So number one, to me, it was refreshing to hear a player own that, almost like looking back saying, yeah, like he learned from it. Okay. Maybe he matured in that. My other train of thought on that is that I don't think he had the issue he had probably was not with either Dable or Shane. So I don't think he'd be here if it was. And then to further drive that home, I'm sure when they negotiated with him, it was discussed and brought up and said, look, all right, you do it again, you're out. I don't know for sure. None of us will know, but I have to believe that he was warned, that was brought up and he was warned about it. So I thought it was a non-issue.
Did you hear about the nickname that Bobby Johnson, the offensive line coach, has for Feliciano?
What do you give him?
They call him Dirtbag.
Oh yeah.
It's a term of affection.
Yep.
Because he's willing to do like the dirty work, and he gets dirty in there and grimy, and he like, and you see the guy, like he just looks like that guy. He's not going to be a Pro Bowl center, but he's old school. We need some of that toughness.
Yeah.
And Nick Gates had that. We all love Nick Gates.
Yeah.
He's still working his way back. So
I love that nickname, Steve. I got to tell you, I absolutely love that.
yeah, they asked him, they're like, ooh, really? I think it was Paul Dottino. He's like, I don't know that I would say that to him, and he's like, no. He's like, man, he's like, that's a term of affection between us. It's like, yep.
That's great.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we have a couple minutes here, Sean. Do you want to go through the schedule? Steve and I did it on our last show, but if you want, if we can quickly go through, we'll just go through the games and then we'd like to hear your picks.
Yeah, we can do that. I'm
All right.
I'm
So
good with that.
I'm just going to bring it up here on a different screen. All right. So week 1, Sean, in Tennessee.
Yeah, I think, well, that's going to be a first good test. We're going to see what this team's going to about. I don't think they can get past Tennessee, but I think it'll be close, and I think it'll be a good idea of where the team has grown. But I think Tennessee wins that one.
Yeah, that's
a loss.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
That's a tough ask for young defense with a healthy Derrick Henry week 1.
All right. So
week 2 home opener, Carolina.
Yeah, I think that's a win for the Giants. I mean, they beat them last year, and I think that's the win for them.
Agreed. We both, right, Steve? We both picked that as a win too. Week 3, Sean, home for Dallas.
Yeah, you know what? This might be
Monday night game, I think, right?
Yeah, this may be an out there pick, but it's at home, so I'm going to go with the Giants over the Cowboys there. You never know in those things. It is a home game. It's a Monday night game, so I'm gonna go on a limb and say, Giants can win that one.
I would feel a lot more better about that if that wasn't a Monday night game. That's our kryptonite. But hey, we'll see. We'll see. So week 4, home against Chicago. 3 home games in a row.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Giants again. On that, it's the Bears. I don't know how much they did to improve, so I think it's a winnable game.
All right, so here we go. So week 5 in London against Green Bay.
Yeah, I think that's an L.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I don't think anybody picks that as a win. So what's that? Week 6, home against Baltimore.
Yeah, I think that's an L as well.
So here's an interesting game. Week 7 at Jacksonville.
Yeah, I'm gonna say a W for the Giants on that one.
Interesting. Steve, you picked that as a loss, did you not?
Yeah, I did.
Yes, you did. You did.
Yeah, I think I'll just say this, Sean. I don't want to go on a tangent, interrupt your mojo. I made a comment in one of our recent podcasts. I have a feeling the top 10 to even the top 15 quarterbacks in the NFL are going to absolutely shred our defense, especially the second and third level, especially the first half of the season. And I think Trevor Lawrence is an ascending, unbelievable young quarterback. I think he's gonna hit his stride a season early. Even I think he's gonna have a field day, especially with that new coach they got, who knows our team. We have a new team, but not a fan of that coach, and he's gonna take that team to another level, I think, unfortunately.
Week 8 in Seattle.
Oh man, that's a tough. I'm gonna say an L just because it's in Seattle, but there's a lot of question marks with that Seattle team, so it's hard for me to say an L there. But it's in Seattle. That's the only reason I'm going L there.
Do you think they're going to be the worst team in football this year?
Seattle?
Oof.
I don't know. Listen, I know Jacksonville's got a new coach, but I think they're still going to be bad. I think the Texans are still going to be bad. I think the Lions could potentially still be bad. Listen, I would love to say a W for the Giants there. It's, man. I don't know. Seattle's always a different adventure. I don't know.
With the quarterbacks they currently have on the roster, they're going to be competing for that number 1 pick. Just my opinion.
Yeah, them in Atlanta.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree, Steve.
Yeah.
Wow. So you have that as an L. Okay.
So
Yeah, that was a tough one for me to go L there. I'm not going to lie. I felt like I was picking a lot of W's as well. So
week 9 is a bye. Week 10 home for Houston.
yeah, I think that's a W for the Giants.
Week 11 home for the Lions.
I'm going to go another W with there. I mean, I know Lions have improved a little bit with their draft picks, but Jared Goff's the quarterback. So I'm going to go W for the Giants there, and it's home.
Week 12, Thanksgiving Day at Dallas.
Oh, God. Yeah, I can't even say it. Like, don't even make me say it. I can't stand the Cowboys. So, but it's in Dallas. It's Thanksgiving. My only good memory of the Giants, I'll just share this real quick, was, Giants, Lions, LT's interception there, but other than that, I'm going to have to go an L for the Giants here. It's in Dallas. It's Thanksgiving Day.
Week 13.
Interesting.
Go ahead, Steve. I'm sorry.
So
You think
I have similar to you, but just the opposite. I have us losing to Dallas at home because that's what we do, especially on Monday night. But I have us going to Dallas and winning in Dallas.
Okay.
Because F Dallas.
Absolutely. The
Dallas sucks, and they're going to be worse on paper this year than last year.
Right.
But they're gonna come to Giants Stadium and beat us. But then we're going to go down there and shove a turkey up their ass.
All right.
So there.
Listen, I don't know if you guys use this term, but you feel free to steal it from me. I call them the Clown Boys. So feel free to use that.
Week 13, home against Washington.
The Commanders, yeah, that's a W. I'm going W. It's the Commanders, and it's home for the Giants.
Yes, it is. Here we go.
Yeah.
Week 14, home against the Eagles.
I'm gonna say you're coming off of Washington. You're playing. It's home for the Giants, but I think the Eagles are going to win that.
Week 15 in Washington against the Commanders.
Commanders are the only one I can feel good about picking the Giants to win both times they play for whatever reason. I can't pick the Commanders to. I don't think they. I think the Giants can win that one.
Well, I think you and I did that as well. We had them sweeping.
I believe we did. I believe you're right, Steve. Yes.
Yeah.
Week 16 at Minnesota.
Yeah, the Vikings are going to take that one.
What a tough way to end the season, these last 3 games. Week 17, home against Indianapolis.
Yeah, I think the Colts take that one.
And then week 18 in Philadelphia. Oh, just what a killer.
Yeah. So listen, I'm going to go against what my head says here, and I'm going to pick the Giants to win this one. I don't know that I believe they're going to win it, but I just can't pick Philly to win twice. That, I just can't. Again, so that's my logic. It's not logical, but that's my logic. I'm not going to pick Philly twice.
So let me point something out about your prediction.
Yep.
Which would be a freaking fun season. Do you realize how many wins you have for the Giants before that final game?
I don't. It's probably like 8 at least.
8.
Yeah.
We now have a 17 game season as opposed to historically always a 16.
Yep.
So 8 and 9, in theory, could still make the playoffs. It's happened before, but probably not. But a 9 win isn't what it used to be.
Right.
9 is the new 10, right? 9 is the new 8, I should say. But that final game could be us trying to win a game to get into the playoffs.
Yeah.
It's interesting. The Eagles could have wrapped up the division already at that point.
Yeah.
They could rest some starters and we could be fighting for a wild card and I don't think any of us are expecting that, right? This is not a year to hope for the playoffs. I think we've all agreed this is a year to take our lumps and build something special, identify new impact players that we, as Carl likes to say, this is a rebuild. And I think we're all, but I'll tell you what, I thought you're crazy. But then the more I think about it, Carl, I think Sean might be onto something because that last game, if they rest their starters and we're a wild card, can you imagine? I'm just saying.
It's look, I mean, it's nice to think that way. It really, and it's very.
Are you calling me naive?
No, I would never do that, brother. But
I love it.
Reality tells me no, they're not going to be playing anything for that last week. And let's say let's say Philadelphia. Okay, Steve, let's play your scenario. So let's say the Giants are out. Okay, Philadelphia's clinched the division, but they're playing for home field advantage in the playoffs.
And they're gonna want to beat us. It doesn't matter because.
And I was just going to say, and we're the Giants, and it's a division game.
Yeah.
Right.
So someone here has to be the voice of reason. I'll be that guy.
All right.
Well, here's an interesting point, though. I want you guys to think.
I was coming to your side, man. I was coming to your side.
I know. Listen. I'm with you. So here's the thing: 8 or 9 wins is not out of the realm of possibility. It's not a homer statement. Think about this for a second. Think about the lack of talent the Giants have had the last couple of years, and they could have won a lot more games than they won. Now you add a competent coaching staff on offense with schemes and things like that can swing those games easily that Giants were losing with no talent, really no talent. When you think about the depleted receiver core, no Jones for so many games, there were games that were still competitive in those last 2 years. And I do think this is a much more competent coaching staff, especially offensively. You think about it. I mean, Judge was running quarterback sneaks 3 downs in a row and, still was close against, Washington. So I don't think it's a homer or it's optimism to say coaching can win a couple more games that they were losing before. And maybe optimism with the Eagles, the last game of the season, but those other games, to me, coaching is going to make a difference and can get at least 2 to 3 more wins that they weren't getting before.
The other great thing Glowinski said in that interview that I listened to from the other day was he talked about availability being the best ability, like Carl Banks always said. And it was so refreshing to hear a player talk about that because there's an accountability piece when a player actually puts that out into the universe. So I'm sorry, Carl, I didn't mean to step on what you were going to say, but I just want to get this one point out there. It's not who you play, it's when you play them. And I think health. And those are the 2 things we don't know. So you know what? That's why you play the games and you never know.
Sean, you touched on something that I wanted to talk about quickly, which was, let's think about it. Whether we're talking 6 wins, let's say anywhere between 6 and 9 wins, okay, to your prediction, okay? You touched on something where I was going to go, where whether it's 6 or it's 9, think about how refreshing that is. When just from a year ago, we were taking quarterback sneaks because we had no faith in our offense to get out of a tight spot and move the ball.
Mm-hmm.
So, already this just feels different. Already it feels like we're going in the right direction, and we have not even played a game yet. So, and that's what I mean by, and Steve, I mean, you've heard me say this numerous times, hope. It's just nice to have hope again that we've got the guys in place now that can get us to the promised land. They just got to keep tweaking it until they get the right mix. But it just feels like they're making the right moves. And Steve, I think I said this maybe last week. What I ultimately see here, Sean, is that this is going to be a place where free agents say they want to go play for the New York Giants again.
Yeah, you did. Yep, you did.
And when was the last time any free agent that signed said, well, this is where I want it to be? So,
And not having to overpay him.
yeah, a reasonable contract.
Right.
So, we'll see. We're going in the right direction. It's going to take time. I'm not worried about wins this year. And we've said this year is about, rebuilding the foundation, putting the system in place, seeing who stays, who goes, what they have. So, if they only win 6 games this year, all right, it's going to suck. But, if they're not getting blown out in the competitive, I'll take that. I'll be happy with that.
Who's our punter going to be?
Didn't they sign somebody, I think, from Australia, some guy with long hair?
Yeah, I was saying, I can't remember his name, but somebody with long hair.
Right.
I feel like that's literally the one position that nobody really knows what the heck is going to happen, and nobody cares. Nobody talks about it. But once the season begins and they have to punt and, the ball goes 30 yards and he doesn't directionally kick and, it's like, oh my God, the punt. I was like, man, I just thought about that. I was like, I don't even know what we're doing about punting.
Look,
Yeah,
I already don't like him. I'm follically challenged as it is. So,
So he's got to be better than Riley Dixon. Riley Dixon was so good early on, and this last year was just so
right.
good.
Right.
He for sure.
Sean, anything else for us tonight?
No, anything that you no, I mean, listen, I enjoyed this a lot, and I asked some, you guys had some great answers to the question I asked. Anything, any kind of thing else to me, because like I said, I love talking Giants football. I'm 48, so I got a lot of history with this Giants, good and bad, Ray Handley era and all that. So, people think that these last few years are bad, but they forget Ray Handley era. That was really, really. Joe Judge and Ray Handley, I think, are tied for me of how bad it got. Like, those are the 2 worst years for me, by far. Just 2 guys that were overmatched in the coaching world at that time. So
unfortunately, I can do you better because I was watching them back in the 70s with John McVay and Joe Pisarcik and Jerry Goldstein. And yeah, it was bad. There's just no other word for it. It was bad.
Either of you guys going to any games? Sean, you planning on going to any games this season?
I'm thinking about, so I went every time they've come down to Tampa, I've gone down since I've been living in Tampa. I'm really thinking about going to Jacksonville because I think tickets wouldn't be bad to get. That's probably the easiest one that I could get to. I don't think I can get to any others, but I'm thinking about Jacksonville.
Now you got me thinking about that too, because Carl,
Yep.
I think for me, that's like a 4.5 hour drive. It's actually not, it's doable.
Yeah. As soon as he said it, Steve, the word that came to my head was road trip.
Yeah.
Listen, I'll tell you guys right now, if you want to plan something, because I'm on the other coast from you guys, I don't think it's far from me either, Jacksonville.
Yeah, it's probably like 3 hours for you, 3.5.
I think so. If we want to plan something, I'm down for it. So
Wait, when is that? Is it December or no?
it is October 23rd.
So it won't be cold.
Nope. That'll be nice. So I'll put it out there right now. If you guys want to plan a trip or something, road trip, I'm down for it.
Steve, we may have to take that offline, but he just planted a seed.
Yeah.
And I've got an open invitation to go to any home game I want. But I don't do cold. So, if I go, I'm probably going to go maybe to the home opener against Carolina. And then maybe one of those early games I'll fly up because, my brother and I, we always try to plan to do. My brother's got season tickets. I don't have them with him anymore, but I'm thinking about one of those earlier games where it's warm. What about you, Steve, aside from Jacksonville?
Yeah, I'm looking at Jacksonville. I'm going to a concert that night on the 23rd.
That's a problem.
Down in Miami, so I don't know if that would work. But I definitely want to go to at least one game, if not more, this season. It's just a question of, which one. And I'd love to go back home, back up north.
Yeah.
Got to figure it out.
Yeah. Last year was the year to do it because
Yeah,
they played both
logistically-
Tampa and Miami.
Logistically, a little bit tougher to go back up, catch a flight, whatever. But if it's a game here in Florida, that's a heck of a lot easier. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed in myself for not going to Miami. I went to the Tampa game, but I should have made Miami work. So
I was at that Miami game and it was just brutal.
yeah, so it worked out well that I didn't. But
Man.
one thing I don't know if you guys have anything, but I will throw out my Twitter handle out there if that's okay.
Go ahead.
It's at Joker Sean 37, and Sean is SHAWN. So yeah, you guys will see me out there a lot, but feel free to add me, whatever. I love talking sports, Giants, all that. So yeah.
Sean, we really appreciated this tonight. We appreciate you stopping by and wanting to participate in the show. You definitely know what you're talking about, and we really, you're a great guest, and we really appreciate this, and hope maybe to have you back on sometime down the road.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I'd love to be back again, guys. Thanks. This was fun.
Steve, as always, it's been a pleasure, brother.
Same here, big guy.
We'll talk soon, all right? Everybody, thank you for your time. Thank you for watching and listening. We appreciate your continued support. And sorry, I lost my computer. And we will see you soon. Thank you. Good night, everybody.